Educating, informing, serving. Fact TV, keeping government honest.
This is the 2021 town followed by the school district meeting. My name is Ray Masuko, for those of you who don't know me. For those of you who do know me, my name is still Ray Masuko. Welcome to this meeting. It's my pleasure to call this meeting to order. We're going to do this year, we're going to do the town first. We'll have a short recess, and then we will adjourn and move into the school district meeting. Please remember that masks are required to be worn in the theater at all times. They put me in the corner, so I'm as distant from the rest of you as I can get. If my mask makes my voice too muffled to be understood, I will remove mine briefly when using the microphone. You should not. We have Zoom participation this evening, in addition to the usual live audience here in the Opera House, Zoom has probably become the most hated word in the English language at this point. We were 2 weeks shy of moving into COVID-19 a year ago at this time. I'll come back to Zoom etiquette in just a few minutes. Unless you're an emergency responder, this would be a good time to turn off your cell phones or pagers. If pagers still exist, I think they do. But anything that's going to make a noise, beep, ring, buzz, anything else, turn those off for now. If you're watching on Zoom, please mute your own phones, televisions, radios, so we don't have any background noise. At this time, I would like to ask you all to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and of the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, for liberty and justice for all. Thank you. If you will turn to the inside cover of your town report tonight, you'll see that it's dedicated to the smiling Speedy Steve James, my father's old fishing buddy. At this time, I'd like to ask Select Board Chair Gaetano Pudignano if he would read the dedication for us.
Yes, thank you, Ray. How come we can't hear your mic like this? It is my pleasure be part in the dedication of this year's Town of Rockingham 2020-2021 annual report, and it is dedicated to Stephen L. James, better known as Speedy Steve. Was born and raised on the family farm in Walpole, New Hampshire. He and his late wife, Carol B. James, settled in Bellows Falls and started a family together in 1965. Steve and Carol raised their 3 children on Atkinson Street in town. It has been a great location for him to spend the past 50 years. Since Steve has always enjoyed extending warm, heartfelt hospitality and has often opened his house up to everyone in the neighborhood. More often than not, he would make sure to buy enough groceries to feed not only his family of 5, but anyone that stepped through the door. Walking into the James house, you can expect to be greeted by Steve offering, and sometimes pushing, food and drink. During the winter months, you can always count on a large batch of kettle-cooked popcorn. Everyone knows him for his famous kettles of the best popcorn around. Show up early in the morning, and you might get lucky and be served Speedy's unique homemade pancakes. They are like no other. Throughout his tenure as a Rockingham notable, if amateur, host and popcorn maker, Steve has also been well known for being called upon for help by the elderly folks who knew and trusted him. Among the most important help he provided was taking folks to the hospital during medical emergencies, and he brought more than a couple of people up to the hospital in town when it was open. In addition to helping out in a pinch, Steve also spent 14 years serving his community at the Bellows Falls Fire Department. During this service, he was involved in calls to many fires. But in particular, he arrived early to a fire at the Star Hotel on December 29th, 1981, and in an act of heroism, saved 2 women from the 3rd floor of the building. Unfortunately, Steve's career as a firefighter ended when he suffered a major heart attack while on call in February of 1982. Many people know Steve because he and his late wife owned and operated James Plumbing for more than 40 years. His son Tony has continued the family business and owns and operates James Plumbing and Heating Oil now. The current offices, which are located on Paper Mill Road, were an eyesore to our community. Thanks to Steve, Tony, and their crew's hard work and dedication revitalizing the old mill building and make it the outstanding building it is today. Throughout the years, Steve often ran the business out of his home on Atkinson Street. True to form, whenever Steve was home and customers showed up, he wouldn't let them leave without encouraging them to grab a banana or take an apple. He always had his counters full of goodies for anyone who might stop by. Steve especially loved having people bring their children in with them when they came to the office. The kids would never leave empty-handed. He would always make sure they grabbed some fruit, a popsicle, a baggie full of the famous popcorn, a juice box, or a little bit of everything. Steve's contributions have truly been a treat for everyone in the Rockingham community for decades and decades, and we are delighted to dedicate this report to him. And due to the times, it's traditional of the chair and vice chair to stop by and have a meal or some pancakes, but with COVID, we were unable to do that. He had asked, I did see him, and he would like each member of this year's select board to please sign his copy. I signed it, so if you ever get an opportunity to arrange that, he would appreciate that. And he was tremendously grateful for this award.
Thank you, Gaetano, for that. We appreciate it. I want to extend a personal thanks to Steve for the time he pulled my own family out of our house on Green Street, which had a full-blown 3-story chimney fire going on. I was out of town and only learned about it when I got back. Steve was driving down the street, saw the flames in the rearview mirror, immediately went back to the house and performed what I consider to be the ultimate act of heroism. He's my own hero. The conduct of the meeting tonight. If you plan to participate in person in any way this evening, please have a seat. I think we've accomplished that. Those who are participating by Zoom, this is my first time running a public meeting with Zoom. I've run a lot of other ones. But you can raise your hand using the Zoom icon, and it will show up in my iPad, so I'm told. I will try to alternate between voters in the House and voters at home, but this is still an experiment. So cut me some slack if it does not go as smoothly as I hope it does. The Zoom moderator will unmute you when you are called upon to speak. Whether you are here or at home, please state your name and residence. If you're here, please stand before speaking. If you're at home, please be dressed.
Ray, I'm getting names down to say we have enough seating.
Okay. We have accessible seating for those who desire it down here in the front. Hopefully we do not have an emergency, but if we do have an emergency, please note that there are 5 exits, 1 on each side of me, 1 to your rear right, 1 to the rear left, and back out through the lobby, should you need to leave in a hurry. No oxygen masks are going to drop down from the ceiling, but if you can assist your neighbors getting out of here, that would be appreciated. If we lose our Zoom connection or have to shut it down for any reason, we'll pause until the connection is restored. We won't continue until we have full Zoom coverage. Basic rules of order. As always, the meeting will be conducted according to Robert's Rules of Order, except as modified by state statute. You can't change state law, but you can choose to modify Robert's rules on a 2/3 majority vote. Absent any objection, I am suspending Robert's rules for the evening so we can conduct this meeting as seamlessly and flawlessly as possible. If there is a rule of procedure or parliamentary procedure that needs to be addressed, I will take it up at that time. General Roberts never heard of Zoom. I expect all participants to be civil and polite. All questions are to be directed to me as the moderator. I will either answer what I can or call upon our elected and appointed officials to help me out. Please stand if you're able and state your name when recognized. You will have to forgive me if I do not call on everyone by name, but I'll do my best. There will only be one fixed microphone here tonight. And that's over here to my left, your right, in the front of the stage, over by Miles, sitting at the check-in. Come down to the mic. You'll need to use that microphone for any comments. We have some sanitary wipes over there. Wipe the mic down before and after you speak, trying to keep it as clean as we possibly can. Keep your mask in place unless people complain that you can't be heard or you're too muffled. Again, please address all comments and questions to me as a moderator, and I'll deflect them or redirect them to those who can give you an answer. Only registered resident voters may speak, unless by leave of the assembly requires a 2/3 majority vote of the assembly. Unless there is an objection, I will rule now that there is leave of the assembly for any town or school officials who may not be resident voters to address the assembly for purposes of explanation during their respective portions of the meeting. We're not voting on many of the warrant articles this evening, and there's already been some confusion here this evening. I've been approached by people who told me we're voting on this article, not that article. The only articles we are voting on here this evening is Article 1, or 2, I guess it is, to act on the reports of the town officers, and Article 13, which is to transact any other business that does not involve the expenditure of funds. All other articles will be voted on tomorrow by Australian ballot at the all-day voting at the Masonic Temple, 61 Westminster Street, between the hours of 8 a.m. and 7 p.m. So only 2 articles require a vote here tonight, and they are primarily housekeeping articles. If an issue comes up, I'll try to make my ruling as impartially and correctly as I can. Any ruling that the moderator makes can be challenged immediately after the ruling. I will explain my ruling, and if you are not satisfied, all it takes is a request to challenge the ruling and put it to a vote of the assembly. Debate on the motion to appeal the ruling of the chair is generally in order. It doesn't come up often, but it has in my lifetime. In keeping with our usual custom of alternating town and school business, tonight we'll start with the town portion, finish that, take a recess, and come back for the school portion. You do need to be recognized in order to address the assembly. I will go around those who I can see here in the room, and I will also call on those who come in by Zoom. I may run through everybody here first and then do Zoom. I may alternate, depends on how many hands, how many people wish to speak. We'll try to keep it as orderly as we can. Person may only speak twice to an article, and limit your overall comments to 10 minutes. Generally not a problem, but if you run on, I will cut you off after I determine you've been on the allotted time. I hope you can be brief and not feel the need to use up all your time or rehash topics that you or someone else has already gone over. That doesn't mean you shouldn't speak to something you feel strongly about. Let's just not rehash everything 3 times. I will read each article in order and then open the floor for discussion. I will offer the maker of the motion on the 2 that have to be made this evening the first opportunity to address the motion. Action under business cannot require the expenditure of funds, nor is it binding on the town. Primarily advisory. We've done a lot of different things under that article about making recommendations, suggestions for next year, but we can't spend money, and it's non-binding. At this point, I'd like to introduce our board to the town here this evening. Starting to my left, Kathleen Needhawk, starting to my left, Scott Pickup, the municipal manager. Next to him is Stefan Golick, board member. Vice Chair Peter Golick. Chair Gaetano Pudignano. And if I can see around downtown, it looks like Ben Mashur down in the end. Our town clerk is somewhere in the audience this evening, right here, Kathleen Needhawk. Again, the polls tomorrow at the Masonic Temple, 61 Westminster Street, between the hours of 8 a.m. and 7 p.m. With that, we will move into the warrant articles for this evening. Article 1 is to elect town officers and school district officers as required by law. That we do tomorrow. That is not up for debate or discussion this evening. Article 2, to receive and act upon reports of the town officers for the past year. Since we don't have designated motion makers, and we have very few motions this evening, Mr. Pudignano, would you be willing to make that motion to receive and act upon the reports of the town officers for the past year?
Moderator, I move Article 2 to receive and act upon the reports of town officers for the past year.
Do I have a second? Seconded. Second by Mr. Golick, Mr. Peter Golick. Is there any discussion? Hearing none? Mr. McPhee, I think.
Over that way, sir?
Yes, sir.
Less than 10 minutes. Hello. It's on. You on? Turn to page 27, if you would, please. Page 27, if you would, please. Town Hall. We are putting in an additional almost 91,000. We put a lot of money in this building, which is a fine building. I'm not opposed to that. But after we spend this 90,000, if approved, what will our yearly repair and maintenance look like after that, barring any difficulty? Will it still remain at 45,000 a year, or what?
Would either a member of the board or the town municipal manager wish to address that?
Moderator, I can just give a brief answer for that. The issue, Mr. McPhee, is outside of capital repairs, so that excludes items like repairs to the roof, significant repairs to the clock tower, which are ongoing at the moment, and some upgrades to the heating and air conditioning system, as you can tell by the temperature in this room, that needs some attention. That number is a good number going forward, outside of those capital investments.
Okay, I mean, the building is expensive to maintain, I realize, and it is a wonderful building. If we could turn to page 47, please, debt services. No, I think that's it.
Doug?
No,
Doug?
wrong page.
Doug, I'm getting comments they can't hear you. Can you stand closer to the microphone?
I can. How's that, better?
Yes.
Can people hear me?
Yes.
No, I'm sorry. I'll come back to that one if I could. Page 33, debt services. I mean, I understand why we borrow money, especially for major projects. Equipment, I'd like to see less borrowing, but my question is, on an average, what are we paying for interest rates? May vary between projects and equipment, but just an average figure if I could have it, please.
I'll just give you just a brief answer to that. Again, recent borrowing, and we have done some refinancing as well, because of the historic federal support for interest rates. We've actually been borrowing at a historically low rate. In between, most of our 10 to 20-year bond rates are between 2 and 3%. And I don't anticipate that those will be going up in the near future. So our borrowing should stay in that neighborhood as long as the federal support for the financial system continues.
Good, thank you. Page 47, this is probably Mr. Fox, who was here. but the loans that we currently have outstanding, and I don't want to get into different individuals, but are most of these people abiding by the rules of the loan and paying us back in a timely manner?
Either Peter or I could answer that. I'll let Peter
Oh,
answer.
okay,
We're
that's
on
fine.
that,
Yeah.
on that committee.
Yeah,
Yeah, Doug, Peter Golick, Gaetano and I are both on the RLF committee, and yes, they are, with the exception of maybe one or two that are now in legal status, so we're pursuing that one and getting them paid off.
okay. Also, on the next page, which is 48, I have trouble seeing without my wearing the damn mask, excuse my language. Due from DUE from two other funds, $416,000. What is that approximately, please? Page 48 at the top. Due from DUE fund and other funds, $17,000.
You can hold on for a second. I think maybe Shannon can update that.
Sure, thank you.
That's,
We're going to call on Shannon Burbila to answer that.
So, can everybody hear me? That is the funds that is due to the town from outstanding loans.
Okay. Good, thank you.
You're welcome.
And by the way, Shannon, I appreciate the detail in the report. I think it's helpful. They have a lot of detail in the report, and I think it's quite good, and I think you're probably partially responsible for that.
Thank
One
you.
last one is delinquencies. I know I discussed this at the informational meeting. I just think that the manager and the board has to keep a close look at this. I'm concerned. I brought up the YMCA building, which, left town and left us with a derelict building. But also there are three companies that owe us money, one all out of business. One is for equipment, personnel equipment, and therefore that's uncollectible. The other two, Vermed and the worst place, of course, they own buildings, so those are collectible. But I just think that we need to keep a close eye in these times on delinquencies. And I want to just say to the manager and the boards and the department heads that I think you have a very good budget. I would like to see it come in with a surplus if possible. So I would like not to spend money if you don't need to, because, and again, spend it on paving after it's not spent for something else. I don't mean not spend it, but increase your paving budget. And I want to thank everybody for a good budget. Thank you.
Is there any other discussion on Article 2? Hearing none, are you ready for the vote? The motion's been made and seconded to receive and the act upon the reports of the town officers for the past year. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and the motion is carried. We don't have to have motions on each of the next 11 articles, but I'm going to read them and then open it up for discussion. Article 3, shall the voters of the town of Rockingham authorize the select board and treasurer to borrow money from time to time in anticipation of tax collection or payment of money due the town from the state of Vermont for highway or other purposes, or payment to the town from federal funds. Is there any discussion? Hearing none.
There's a question on Zoom.
Seeing it. Not on my screen. Yeah. Nope. Yeah. Susan just popped up. Is that the one?
I have a question. If you saw Susan Hammond's comment just now, I heard a couple eyes from Zoom, but those people aren't identified.
I tried to get all the names down. I have 62 names.
Okay, I'm not, what was Sue's question? Can we read that and address that? Sue Hammond's question?
Wanted people to vote, wanted to know if people online could vote.
I'll read it.
I'm not asking.
Okay. All right. I can see everybody but the hand. So would we not have somebody looking to ask a question? Nope, okay. In that case.
Ray? Ray, it's Susan. I asked whether or not the Zoom people should raise their hands on a vote call. I don't know what the rules are these days under COVID.
Yes, they may. And I apologize, I did not recognize, because she wasn't here, Susan Hammond, another member of the select board. So Susan is here and she had that question. And yeah, let me clarify that. Anybody that's here tonight who's a resident, check in, can vote. Pat is monitoring who is on Zoom. If we have a question about whether or not somebody is in fact a resident, Pat recognizes the name from the checklist. Miles also has a checklist going. But if you're watching on Zoom and you are registered to vote in the town of Rockingham, raise your hand when we take the votes on the motions, or if you wish to speak. Obviously, we only have one other motion one other article which requires a motion. So I won't say it's a moot point, but there's not going to be much activity in terms of motions. But if you do wish to speak, make sure you raise your hand using your Zoom function. And if I don't catch it, Shannon Burbila has offered to give me an alert. I see some alerts, I don't see all apparently. So
Yeah, the raise hand is.
I have a new question, so hold on a minute. Question. I have a clap icon or a thumbs up icon. Where is the raise hand icon? And I suspect that each different device or how you log into Zoom may affect that, but I don't know specifically. So, but if there's some way you can get Shannon's attention, we will certainly recognize you.
The should count as a raised hand if you. Do you want to
For
speak?
Article 1,
Okay. Chris Pratt, WNESU Superintendent, says the raise hand is under the icon bar. So he clearly knows more about this than I do. Right now, I don't see anybody other than making comments. Amy Howlett. All right, Amy Howlett, I can see your hand. So we are calling on Amy Howlett. So Shannon, if you could unmute Amy. Amy, you're in control of the, there you go.
This is Amy Howlett in Saxons River. On my screen, if I tap the participants button, then raise hand is one of the choices under participants. So I can raise and lower my hand on participants. I expect, as you said, Ray, that it's different with every device. I'm using a laptop.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. I also see a hand up from Laurel Green and Steve Crofter.
Yeah, when you took the vote earlier, you only were listening, it appeared, for people who were responding in the room. So by being on Zoom, I was feeling like I was not being counted as an official person living in town, Laurel Green, resident in Bellows Falls. And it needs to be equitable, whether we can attend in person or on Zoom.
Good for Laura.
No, Laurel, I definitely agree. I'm sorry if I overlooked you. I'm trying not to back up and I want to go forward, but The only motion we voted on so far has been the motion, Article 2, to receive and act upon the reports of the town office. Is that the article that you wish to weigh in on?
Yeah, even if my vote is just a yes with everyone else's, I want to be included because I'm a resident.
I absolutely understand that. So we're learning as we go this evening. So
Jigs McCullough, I heard him clear. He unmuted his microphone and voted yes. Perhaps that's what you do if you're in Zoom for the one more vote we have.
I see Mr. Hunter has his hand up, at least physically. If not digitally. Charlie, can you unmute yourself if you have a question?
No question.
Okay, you're just
Just
saying hello?
voting yes, that's all.
Okay.
Is there anyone that votes no?
It is. No, we'll fine tune it. We'll fine tune this as we go. We have had discussion on Article 3. Is there anybody else that wishes to comment on Article 3? I don't see a hand. I don't see an icon. Okay. In that case, we will move on to discussion under Article 4. Article 4, shall the voters of the town of Rockingham authorize the select board to seek out and/or accept funds available from non-property tax revenue sources and to spend those funds in appropriate ways after required public input. Is there discussion on Article 4? All right, I'm not seeing anybody on Zoom weighing in. No. Hearing no further discussion, we will move on to Article 5. Article 5, shall the voters of the town of Rockingham raise and appropriate the sum of $6,021,089 to pay the indebtedness of the town, repair and maintain highways, and pay all other general and regular expenses of the town, beginning July 1, 2021 through June 30th, 2022, with $5,122,944 to be raised by taxes. Is there discussion of Article 5? Ms. Wright.
Excuse me while I do some housekeeping. It's on? Okay. It's on. Yeah, I get it. Please turn to page 20.
Deb, will you identify yourself, please?
Okay. Deborah Wright.
Okay.
And we're looking at Article 5, where it is raising, asking the voters to approve $6,021,089 to pay for the indebtedness, with $5,122,944 and to be raised by taxes. But on page 20, you'll see that the budgets at the top of the page, current taxes received for FY 19, 20, 21, and 22 are all in the $2.2 million range. I'm assuming that's a huge error. And I'm asking the question, why it's reported this way? It's never been done that way before.
Shannon Berbila, can you address that?
So you're only looking at the general fund, so that number is for the highway, the cemeteries and parks, as well as the general fund. That includes the $379,000 and some change for the library as well. So if you look at the tax amount due for highway, and you add that to the general fund, as well as the amount for cemeteries, we raise that amount every year.
Yes, but it's never been split up into the different departments before, so I expected to see a $6 million figure on page 20 for all of the collected taxes. I do see it's there now at the bottom of the highway.
This is how the reports have looked every year in all the previous reports. So the beginning page is a general fund.
In addition to that is the fact that we, the public, have no opportunity to see what has been expended for the final on FY 20, as we normally do in this booklet, and we waited until tonight to get a few of the pages from the audit. I was hoping that we'd have the entire audit here, but we do not. That's my question.
I can bring some clarity to the audit question, and thank you for raising the concern. Last March, in the management letter that was distributed with the prior year's fiscal results, there was a host of updates that were requested by our auditors in order to more closely align our reporting with some of the more accepted practices with accounting. So we had a large number of funds where we had to go back in this current budget and adjust accounts from prior years in order to satisfy the appropriate accounting. It didn't change any of our fund balances. It didn't change any of our performance, but it was an accounting activity that required a tremendous amount of updates to the journal entries and transactions that our finance department had to go back and work through. So based on the complexity of those changes, unfortunately, in the difficulty of doing remote Zoom auditing, which is a little more difficult than in-person auditing, the audit team got a little bit behind on the audit, and we ended up having to unfortunately miss our deadline for publication. And now we do have the short form of all those accounts, which have been updated and are in accordance with the prior year's management letter. And we will also have a host of recommendations in this year's audit management letter, which we do not have, which will then define how we close out our fiscal year so that we don't have a repeat of this in succeeding budget and audits. So it was a concern, it's been addressed, and it did not impact our overall financial performance. So I do apologize for the lateness, but in order to be in compliance with those requirements, it did take some additional time.
Is there any other discussion on Article 5 in the House? Yes. Rebecca.
I know this budget wasn't the easiest budget to put together, but
Can you identify yourself, Rebecca?
Rebecca Gagnon.
Yep, thank you. Thank you. You need to be closer to the mic.
Rebecca Gagnon, Bellswell. No. Okay. So page 34, we gave up the theater for next year. We don't have a budget, but there's a line item.
Could you speak louder, closer to the mic, please? We can't hear on Zoom.
Yeah, there's a line item on page 34 that is interest expense for 30. So page 34, theater expense. There's a line item in there for interest, 33,400. Is that interest no longer, or what was it and where did it go?
Member of the select board want to address that, or Shannon, do you want to address that? Okay. We'll ask Shannon to address it.
So the cinema, the Opera House was once a standalone fund. And when we moved it into the general fund, typically the general fund pays that interest amount for the Opera House anyway. And it's a transfer from one account to the other. So now it's just listed in the bond payment for the renovations to the Opera House. It was always listed in the general fund, but then it was also a transfer because the Opera House was its own fund, so now it's just located in one place.
I figured it was a bond. Where is it in the bond fund? I don't even know where, I tried looking for it and I couldn't find it. I don't even know where bond fund is.
It's in the debt section of the general fund, which is page 33. There's town hall interest and town hall principal. And those are the total amounts for those bonds that include the Opera House as well as the rest of town hall.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Mr. Moderator?
Yes.
I believe Jiggs has a hand up there.
Yes, Mr. Moderator, Jim McAuliffe,
Yes, Jim.
Bellsville. My question is, what is the impact of this budget on the tax rate and versus the previous year?
Is that a manager question or a finance director question?
Shannon, if you want to come up, we can go ahead and we'll address that as well.
So this budget was level funded, and because our lister, our grand list increased slightly, the impact on the tax rate was a negative impact. It was very slight, but it was still a negative impact.
Thank you.
Mr. Pudigano.
Moderator, it's Peter Golick, but I have a question also on the interest here. Somebody could clarify this. We paid in 2021 on town hall renovation interest $40,000. We also had $33,400 in the cinema, and now it's gone down to $20,086. Can somebody figure out how, did we get a big break on our interest payment? Something doesn't sound right here.
Well, at the beginning, this was a 0% interest loan, and then the structure of the loan changes over time. I can get you the amortization schedule if you'd like.
Does that answer your question, Peter?
Not completely, but I'll take it up at a later date. Another question I have is, in 2019 at this town meeting, we voted to put $50,000 into the unsafe building reserve. From there, it went back into the budget at $40,000. And if you look on the reserve page, there's nothing showing for the $10,000. I'm just curious what happened to the $10,000.
And do we have anybody in the town municipal office that can address that?
We did carry some monies for unsafe buildings. Are you asking about unsafe buildings, or what piece of that are you asking about? Because I'm unclear as to which.
$10,000 that was moved was his question. We moved the 50, it became 40.
Right.
He's asking where the 10 ended up.
Unsafe building reserve.
Turn yours on.
Unsafe building reserve. Building reserve, 2019, it was voted by this town meeting to put $50,000 into the reserve account. From there, it got moved into the budget. Only 40,000 got moved, so I'm trying to figure out what happened to the 10. And then this year, we're forecasting another 40,000 again. Are we putting more $40,000 in there when it was only voted one time?
Shannon?
So the 50,000 that was voted on was an article. This 40,000 that was moved in here was moved in to use the 50,000 that you had raised in the article. And we, I think, still have 40,000 left, so that's why we put the expense in again into this fiscal year using the 10 that was left over. And we just didn't use all of the funds. So what they returned back to reserve, and we're planning to use them this year.
Supposed to, before the end of the period, June 30th, the board has to vote to move it back into the reserve fund, or we have to find someplace else to do it or spend it. Thank you.
Any other discussion on Article 5? Anybody in the Zoom audience? No. All right, hearing nothing further, we will move on to Article 6. Article 6, shall the voters of the town of Rockingham raise and appropriate the sum of $428,286 in operating expenses for the support of the Rockingham Free Public Library, $379,250 of which to be raised by taxes. Is there discussion on Article 6? Hearing none, we'll move on to Article 7. Article 7, shall the voters of the town of Rockingham raise and appropriate the sum of $92,103 to be allocated to the following social service agencies as indicated. Bellas Falls Community Bike Project, $2,500. Bellas Falls Senior Center, $21,384. Greater Falls Connections, $4,000. Greater Falls Justice Center, $3,000. Green Mountain RSVP and Volunteer Center, $500. Healthcare and Rehabilitation Services, Inc., $2,700. Meeting Waters YMCA, $5,000. Our Place, $5,000. Parks Place, $4,000. Senior Solutions, $1,500. Southeastern Vermont Community Action, SEVCA, $4,770. Southeast Vermont Transit, Inc., The Current, $3,825. Springfield Supported Housing Program, $2,500. Vermont Adult Learning, $1,350. Visiting Nurse Alliance of Vermont and New Hampshire, $26,024. Women's Freedom Center, $1,750. Youth Services, $2,300. And these are ones that we periodically have to revote individually, but for 5 years, once they're voted in for 5 years, we can carry them forward and lump them into one article. Is there any discussion on Article 7? This is right.
Deborah Wright, and I just want to point out that the Bellas Falls Bike Project, it was voted in last year at $5,000. It was a separate article, and it was supposed to carry forward this year. Instead, it was listed at $2,500 last year and this year. And I'm told by the manager there'll be an adjustment. I just want to point it out. It's supposed to be $5,000, not $2,500. Thank you.
Just for point of clarification, I did speak, Deb had brought that to my attention, and we are committed to the additional funds. That was just a carryover from 19 to 20. We had allocated the wrong amount. So if we need to make up the balance, we'll make it up in our operating budget for the balance of the year.
Is there any other discussion on Article 7, sorry. Yep. Yeah, Laurel Green. We unmute her. There you
I'm
go.
unmuted now. Laurel Green, Bellows Falls. I just wanted to clarify, the funds said that they were going to the current, but did they not merge with the mover? Does that need to be changed?
Question, do we have someone who wishes to speak on the current versus the mover?
Yes, they are one and the same, so the funds are going to the mover.
Very good. I'm quite in support of that and look forward to being post-COVID so we can make better use of the bus system. Thank you.
All right. And thank you for that question, Laurel. That helps. Is there any?
Yes,
Yes, Joan E. Hi, Joan.
my hand's
You're on.
up.
You're on.
Yeah, hi.
Hi.
This is Joanne Ehrenhaus with Senior Solutions. And I just want to thank you for the opportunity to participate in the town meeting. I'd be happy to answer any questions regarding the services that Senior Solutions has been providing. We're asking for the same amount this year, which is a grand total of $1,500, which is what we've asked the last few years. This is not a year, even though we're serving a lot more people, this is not the time to ask towns to pay extra. So we'd be very happy just to have you guys call the helpline and continue to ask us for support and help for all the needs of the aging population, those 60 and over, and those who are handicapped in the community of Rockingham. Thanks again. And please ask me a question if you have any. Thank you.
Do we have any questions regarding Senior Solutions? It looks like you've satisfied everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good. Jim. Okay, Jim's not on my screen, but Jim, go ahead.
Yes, the Meeting Waters YMCA, do they have any activities here in Bellows Falls anymore?
Is there anybody in the house that can answer that? I have some knowledge of that, if nobody else does. Gary Fox. Gary, can you go pick up a microphone over there?
Yeah, hi, Gary Fox, Resident and Development Director, and YMCA was looking to relocate, and we they found a great space in the Greater Rockingham Area Services Building, and they do hold after-school activities. I'm not sure with COVID what the summer camp activities look like, but that is a program they still run as well.
Does that answer your question, Jim?
Thank you.
Are there other questions under, or discussion under Article 7? Amy, your hand is up. Go ahead.
I would like to commend the select board and municipal officers for collecting excellent reports in the back of the annual report, which give good details on every one of these services to the residents of Rockingham. So it was great when I heard the questions at the information meeting about the why, to be able to go to this part of the annual report and read what the money was used for and how many Rockingham residents benefited. I really appreciate a well-written annual report, and I think I have one in my hands right now. Thank you, Ray.
Thank you, Amy. Is there any discussion or questions under Article 7? Laura Scherbaum, I see your hand up.
Hi, yeah, I wasn't going to say anything, but I'm Laura Scherbaum. I'm a resident of Bellows Falls, and I'm also the director of Greater Falls Connections. I wanted to point out that Greater Falls Connections, because of paperwork issues, wasn't included in the town report, but we did submit a report, and I was told that it was going to be included somehow in the meeting. So I want to speak up to assure folks that we're still working hard in the community and supporting youth and families, especially those who experience substance use disorders. And if you have any questions about what we're up to, I'd be more than happy to now or offline. So thank you.
Laura, I can tell you that your report was prominently displayed and distributed to everyone here in the Opera House. I can't speak for folks at home if they were able to get a copy of that, but it's here. It was put in with the town reports that were available here tonight. It was displayed as you checked in. So at least the folks who are here did get a report.
Okay, good. That settles my worries a little bit. Thank you.
Amy, I saw your hand up again. Was that intentional? Yes, Amy.
Sorry, I thought I was lowering my hand. I've lowered it now.
Okay. I'd love to take you to an auction. Anybody else on Zoom that wishes to weigh in on Article 7? Don't see anybody. Okay. All right, hearing none, we will move on to Article 8. Article 8, shall the voters of the town of Rockingham vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $22,000 to fund the Meeting House Capital Reserve Fund, with $22,000 to be raised by taxes. Is there any discussion under Article 8? Hearing none, we will move on to Article 9. Shall the voters of the town of Rockingham vote to transfer $100,000 from the surplus highway unassigned fund balance to highway operating budget for purposes of paving? Is there discussion under Article 9? Hearing none, we'll move on to Article 10. Shall the voters of the town of Rockingham vote to exempt the following properties from all real estate property taxes for the property located at the listed addresses for a 5-year period commencing with the grand list of April 1, 2021. And again, this is a housekeeping article that comes up for these nonprofit tax-exempt entities periodically when we have to vote whether or not to exempt them from property tax for 5-year periods. And those properties are Bartonsville Grange, number 481, 130 Upper Bartonsville Road. Saxons River Village Land and Trout Ponds, 201 Pleasant Valley Road. Where'd we go? Oh, we back? Okay. I'll repeat that last one. Saxons River Village Land and Trout Ponds, 201 Pleasant Valley Road. Bellas Falls Village Corporation Watershed Land, 125 Darby Hill Road. Bellas Falls Village Corporation. Somebody's always pulling my mic. Bellas Falls Village Corporation Water Tower Site near Industrial Park, 706 Rockingham Road. Saxons River Village Recreation Area, 75 Pleasant Valley Road. Saxons River Village Horan Trust, 698 Saxons River Road. Bellas Falls Area Senior Center, 3 Hyde Street. Is there any discussion under Article 10, tax exempt properties? Mr. McPhee.
My question deals with, I'm not opposed to exempting any of these, but what happens to the school tax portion? I realize we lose from our grand list, but do we have to pay the state the school tax on that property?
That seems like a very excellent question, Doug. I don't have an answer. I don't know if anybody at the municipal level has an answer.
Okay, no, I'm just curious. I've heard that in the past, that when you exempt a piece of property that is not exempt by the legislature, then you are responsible for the school portion to pay the state for that. But
That is correct.
that is correct. So it's actually, it costs us money to exempt this property. I'm not opposed to it by any means, but I just think people should be aware that we will end up paying the state the portion of the school. Thank you.
For those of you who couldn't hear him, Paula Bohosky, one of the town listers, responded to Mr. McPhee's question that yes, in fact, the town absorbs that tax that we are exempting from these particular organizations. Article 11. Oh, I'm sorry. Any other discussion under Article 10? Yes, Camilla Roberts, the chair of the listers.
I confirm what Paul Obohosky said. I was preparing to answer that, but he's got it covered.
Okay. Thank you very much, Camilla. Any other discussion under Article 10? Hearing none, we'll move on to Article 11. Article 11, shall the voters of the town of Rockingham adopt the budget of the Rockingham Free Public Library by Australian ballot, commencing with the 2022 Town of Rockingham Annual Meeting? Is there discussion under Article 11? Hearing none, we'll move on to Article 12. Article 12, shall the voters of the town of Rockingham adopt the budget of the town of Rockingham by Australian ballot, commencing with the 2022 Town of Rockingham Annual Meeting? And just for clarification, under COVID rules, we were allowed to move to some articles which we normally vote on at the floor to Australian ballot by the vote of the legislature. In order to make that permanent, that's why these two articles appear here. And is there any discussion under Article 12, moving the Rockingham budget to Australian ballot next year, which would make it permanent unless it's reversed at some time in the future? Any discussion? Yes, Mr. Lambert.
David Lambert? No?
David Lambert, I live in rural Rockingham. It seems to me that if we make the vote on the town budget by Australian ballot permanently, that pretty well spells the end of town meeting as traditionally held in Rockingham. Also, it's been my experience that when you vote the town budget in person at the town meeting, you can change the amount of the budget by amendment. And that was done last year. If the town budget goes only to Australian ballot, then we won't have an option of changing the budget, just voting it up or voting it down. So for those reasons, I will vote against that article tomorrow.
Thank you, David. Did I see Susan Brace had a hand up?
Yes, but David basically said what I was going to say, and it does, I would also vote against this because it would seem to end town meeting as a real useful exercise in local democracy if it just goes to Australian ballot for the budget, the town budget.
Thank you. Any further discussion on Article 12? Yes. I've been recognizing everybody right up until now. I see you, John, now.
I'd just like to offer the alternative to that as being, you do have the ability to change the budget through ballot. It just has to be declined or be voted down and then go to another vote. However, I would like to also point out it allows more people in the community to have the opportunity to vote on the budget, whereas the average participation in this meeting on a standard year is about 97 to 103, whereas the average voters at the polls will be closer to 700. So it allows the opportunity for more people to have an effect on the budget and to have their voices heard. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Any further discussion on Article 12? Anybody home on Zoom? Nope. All right, in that case, we come to the final article of the evening, and this is the other article under which we can conduct business. Article 13, to transact any other business deemed proper when not involving the expenditure of town funds or any other business acted upon in the preceding article. And Peter Golick, would you like to move that article? Would you like to move that article, Peter?
Moderator, I move to transact any other business deemed proper when not involving the expenditures of town funds or any other business acted upon in the preceding article.
Do I have a second? Thank you. Is there any discussion under Article 13? Again, we can't spend money, but we can give advice. Is there anybody at home that wishes to take up business under Article 13? Ms. Hammond?
Yes, I'm not sure if this is the right place, but I would just want to notify people, acknowledge actually that the town lost quite a few staff people this year for various reasons. Many of them had worked for the town for many, many years. So I'd like to, and the manager wrote a nice list in his, on page 52, of some of the people who left. I don't think it includes everyone, but Gary DeRoche, Joan Harlow, Rick Hammond, and Hines has been on disability all year as well. So, and I think there was others in the highway department. I just want to thank all of the people who dedicated many, many years to the town of Rockingham.
Thank you, Susan. Is there any other business to be taken up under Article 13? That's right.
Wow, okay. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow with the outcome of elections. However, I would like to acknowledge the service of Gaetano Pugliano, Ben Monsieur, and Stefan Golick, in his case, one way or the other, to this board and for keeping due diligence on the budgets. I just want to make sure that was done because it's our last opportunity to do so. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion? John, have you got your hand up? Or you? There we go. Is there any other business to be taken up under Article 13? Shannon, you seeing anybody with a hand up? Well, ladies and gentlemen, you have conducted your first and hopefully last annual town meeting via Zoom. I thank you all for your patience. Thank you for your participation. We did what? We did. I don't think we had a motion to take up any business. Okay. He did. And I don't hear any action that we can take up for a vote. Yeah. We can, all in favor of the motion that's been seconded to transact any other business? All in favor? All opposed? All right, the ayes have it, the motion is carried. I will entertain a motion to adjourn, but come back here.
Better check your Zoom audible people.
Say again?
Moderator. The Zoom people want to be heard.
Okay. $15-minute break? Okay. Do we have any people in favor of the motion? Raise your hand and say aye. Yeah. So, opposed to the motion, raise your hand.
We gotta delete our hands.
It still appears the ayes have it. The ayes do have it, and the motion has carried. We will now entertain a motion to adjourn. Thank you, Mr. McPhee. All in favor of adjournment, say aye. Opposed? And we'll see you back here in about 10 minutes.